Hello, everyone. It's Tim Blank here, Vice President for BostonFIG, and I am here today with some of our past Figgy winners, and we're talking about what has happened with their games, what are they doing with their games now, and what are they doing as designers. And so for the next hour, we're going to be checking in with some of them, and you can see how these games have evolved both before they went to BostonFIG, after they were part of our show, and really, again, just to see where they are now. First up, I am here with Max Seidman from Resonim, and Resonim has been in our show for a couple of years. They actually have two Figgies. First was Visitor in Blackwood Grove, which won our audience choice in 2017, and Mechanica, which won Most Innovative in 2019. How you doing, Max?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Great, great. I'm glad that you're here with us as well. So Max, can you tell us a little bit about your two games?
Yeah, so I guess chronological order. Visitor in Blackwood Grove is an 80s alien-themed puzzle game, which takes like 15 minutes to play, and one player plays an alien who's crashed in the woods outside town, one player plays a kid who's trying to rescue the alien, and everyone else plays agents, federal agents who are there trying to capture the alien. And what's exciting about it is you actually build a puzzle each time, not a jigsaw puzzle, but a conceptual puzzle each time you play. You have to figure out the commonalities between certain objects, like what do a waterfall, a piano, and a dragon have in common. And you have to kind of test theories to see what objects will and what objects won't match the secret rule and try to figure that out. That's Visitor.
Yeah, I remember playing that, and you'd play tested that at Game Makers Guild a couple of times as well. And I remember first time I play tested it, it's super innovative mechanic because you're making up a rule in your head. And so it's not like a preset rule in the game. So it could be, you know, that there's red on the card, or it could be that it's something with a tail and you're just playing cards to see whether they match that rule or not.
Yeah, it's kind of a race to figure that out. In the example I gave, waterfall, piano, and dragon, they all make noise, for example.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. What that commonality is, and the alien player kind of gets to preside over it. They're the one who gets to make up that puzzle, and they want their ally, the kid, to solve it before the agents, their opponents.
Cool. And then you had Mechanica, which was Most Innovative in 2019. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Mechanica is a game where you're building factories, and I was talking a lot about puzzles, but not jigsaw puzzles when it came to Visitor. In Mechanica, it actually is out of jigsaw puzzle pieces, so you're building a factory out of these interlocking jigsaw puzzle tiles, and your factory is actually making robot vacuum cleaners. And in the story of the game, it becomes very clear that you're building these factories to make robot vacuum cleaners that are definitely going to take over the world at some point, even though
as they do.
Yeah, as they do. But you get to be a greedy human who just wants to make money. So you try to make the most efficient factory possible by using the interlocking puzzle pieces to upgrade the robots that pass through them, or duplicate the robots that pass through them, or give you extra money when a robot passes through that. And you kind of want to build the best assembly lines and conveyor belts.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember playing this one as well. And yeah, the puzzle pieces, you get this board and you have to stick them together. And if they don't fit in the right way, then you can't place that piece there. So there's also a puzzle aspect of it where you're trying to make sure you're putting the correct kinds of pieces next to each other in order to get your robots through the factory there. So you've been in BostonFIG a number of times, you and your design partner, Mary. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at BostonFIG?
Well, so yeah, my co-designer, Mary Flanagan, and I go to a lot of conventions each year to show off the cool games that we're trying to make. And I gotta say, BFIG is definitely my favorite. It's just so much, it's a much chiller, much better experience than a lot of the big conventions. And one of my very favorite things about it is that the audience, the people who come to BFIG, you're going to get a lot of people who are interested in games, but you're also going to get a lot of people who are just like, this might be a cool thing to do for a Saturday. So we really like being able to show off the games and see how the games work with folks who are not super invested in games, but might be interested. That kind of casual audience is a thing you don't often get at the big conventions.
Right, yeah, and a lot of your games, they do speak to that more casual audience as well. But as you know, myself as a gamer, I do also find them fun. So you're kind of hitting both audiences with them.
That's the sweet spot we're trying for, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing it. And you got 2 Figgy Awards to show that you are doing it pretty well. So can you tell me, how have these games changed since they were in the show, or have they?
Yeah, I think both games ended up in the show just when they were about done. So they haven't changed drastically, although I think we made some tweaks to Visitor. Um, but the kind of big thing that happened for each of those games is after they were in the show, they then got released to retail, and trying to get them out to get them out in the wild.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. So Resonum, Mary's publishing company, is a small publisher, and so it's interesting to try to get our kind of indie games into stores. But we had a lot of really good success with both Visitor and Mechanica. With Visitor, actually, when it released as an exclusive with Target for about a year, and that was really exciting. And Mechanica, which released this year, so not a great year to release games, but has been in Barnes and Noble. So we try to get the games as far as we can, so that people who, again, maybe wouldn't go to the local game store, although hopefully they should, will end up seeing the games in places they wouldn't otherwise expect to see games.
No, that's pretty awesome. I remember seeing Visitor in Target, and it was in an indie game section. So a bunch of my other friends who had published games were there, and I had a picture somewhere on my social media with a bunch of my friends tagged to be like, I walked into Target and I know half the designers that are have
It
games
was
on these shelves right now.
it was certainly a really great experience when it started launching there. I kept getting friends sending me pictures of it in their local Targets. Actually, we don't have a local Target here, so it was great to see it other places.
Did you ever go to a Target just to see it?
I did. I
And
eventually
what was that like?
about an hour and a half to see it. I had to take pictures of it, of me posing with it. It was a surreal experience because
Wearing that shirt too?
Yeah, wearing the visitor. It was a surreal experience seeing it next to a lot of really big name games.
Right. Yeah, no, that's going to be amazing, and then just a good feeling, and you get to sit there and think like, this is what I'm doing with my life, and I have something with my name on it in a major retail store.
Mhm.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since these 2 games? I know you are still designing, and Mechanica was fairly recent, but what other games are you designing, or what else are you doing with your board game life here?
Yeah, so Mary and I are trying to release 2 new games every year. Our most recent one was Surrealist Dinner Party, and that's coming out next month, March, coming out in March. And that one actually also was at BFIG in 2019. And then we actually just announced that we have a game called Ghostwriter that we're going to be kickstarting right after the release of Surrealist Dinner Party. So keep an eye out for that one.
All right, so you're doing a lot of stuff here, and as someone who has played Surrealist Dinner Party, I know that's coming to my house in a couple of months because I backed that Kickstarter. So I can tell everyone out there that it is a fun game. It's kind of a take that where you're playing with some surrealist artists and you're just trying to screw over your neighbor, but also, meet your own goals too. So. All right, anything else that you want to say before we go, Max?
Thanks for doing BFIG every year. It's really, as I mentioned, a great convention, and I really enjoyed. I was actually really taken aback when Visitor won the Audience Choice Award, because I saw people voting for it, but it was a surprise that that many people played the game and enjoyed it enough to submit their little tickets for it.
Yeah, I think that was amazing. And I remember that you were in the back row too. And so you were kind of tucked off into a back corner, which may have actually helped given the theme of the game, because you're kind of like in this field at night, right? And so I don't know, maybe that just created a little bit more of an atmosphere for it. But I was, being back there and still winning Audience Choice, like that's amazing that, you weren't one of the ones that were right up front for everyone to see, but still everyone thought it was a good enough game to vote for it. Yeah. All right, well, thanks a lot for coming here, Max, and we'll keep an eye out in future Boston Figs, because I know you're going to be applying to them as well.
We will have more games there, hopefully.
All right, thanks for being here, Max. Hey everyone, we are here with Joe McClintock. Joe McClintock is one of the designers of Or the Mining Game, which won Best in Show in 2013. 2013 was our second year of Boston Fig, and it was the first year that we had tabletop games in the showcase. So Joe is our original Best in Show winner with his game Or. How's it going, Joe?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks. So Or, Best in Show. Got to be a great game, first ever. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So Or is a pseudo worker placement game about running an industrial age mining company. So you start with a collection of workers that you can send to mines to collect resources or to get contracts to sell those resources and make money. But the really novel aspect of it is the fact that the mines, instead of a normal worker placement game where they go on the spot and then immediately come back, they go down deeper in the mine and gather more the further they go. So there's a bit of strategy in figuring out, where to go and how to time your workers to get the best out of it.
That's right. I've played this game a couple of times, and where you go in the mine affects where your opponents can go, right? So when you're on like one level, your opponents can go deeper and get more.
Yeah, so it's like a normal worker placement where once you go in a mine, other people can't go in there. But then at the end of the turn, you go down and people can start, up
That's
above
right.
you. But then the interesting thing is as you go down, you'll reach points where you can't dig any further, and it causes the entire mine to collapse. And so there's some fun stuff where, like, when you know that someone else needs to get a resource, you can cause the mine to collapse and like mess with other people. So there's a lot of fun interaction you can have.
All right, so it's kind of got that Euro vibe, but there's still a lot of interaction between the players, so you're not just completely siloed in your own game there.
Yeah, very much
Cool,
so.
cool. So Boston Fig 2013, this was before I was actually involved with Boston Fig. So can you tell me a little bit about that experience of being there? Because I wasn't there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was a great experience. So this was, I forget how Boston Fig is now, but back then, it was just one day. It was interesting. Like the tabletop was an entirely different building from the video game side. So it was very different, but I feel like the vibe was still very similar. Just it was, there were tables all around the place, and people had set up their games, and um, we just played the game nonstop for like the full 8 hours, 10 hours that the play area was open. It was me and Jason, my co-designer, and we had two copies set up on our little round table. We actually designed a different version of the game at that point was like a 2 hour game. At this point, it's like an hour or so, hour and a half. But we designed like a 20-30 minute variant that you could get through, and we just had people coming in and playing it nonstop the entire day. Like it was hard to pull ourselves away to get some lunch in the middle of the day. So it was a great experience, honestly.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling of, you need to find someone to cover your booth when you just got to go to the bathroom or whatnot.
Yeah.
And you're like, come on now. But I'm a huge fan of doing that, taking a little slice of your game when you're at a convention, and then just showing that off, give your players a little bit of a little taste of what it's about. And then, if you got it for sale, then get them to buy the whole game too, right?
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So it sounds like the game has changed. You said it was about 2 hours when you showed it off. Now it's around an hour. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it's changed since it was in Boston Fig?
Yeah, the game has changed a lot, and that's one of the interesting things where I think the game was only a year or so old at the time that we were at BFIG, and it took us another 6-7 years to like find a publisher, get it kickstarted, get it on shelves, and it changed a ton since then. And a lot of that is at the time it didn't have a board. Our publisher ended up wanting to have a board, so we added a board. There's just a lot of the changes in terms of the mechanics. We kind of cut down on certain things. We removed certain assets that you could get, and just that's the thing with board game design is just constant iteration. And it's it went from hand cut cards printed in black and white to our current version that looks like a regular board game. So there's been a lot that's changed.
Yeah, no, I remember those cards and the little symbols that you had, and you glued things on top of chips and all of that. So
Yeah.
that's what, that's what prototyping is. That's what designing is, right?
Yeah.
You also, I know you had kind of an interesting experience pitching this around to publishers. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So ultimately, what worked for us is we went to the publisher's speed dating at Gen Con, which was run by James Matthew. Fortunately, died a few years ago. Anyway, but yeah, that was a great experience. We just got to pitch to, I think, like 24 publishers in the course of like an hour or two, which is very crazy experience. But we managed to find quick, simple, fun games, which ended up signing us on. And after working on it and tweaking it and making it better, ran a successful Kickstarter. So it worked.
Great. I mean, that sounds like it did work. I know I always joke around with you about quick, simple, fun because Or is a worker placement game. It's not quick. It's not simple. Yeah, it's with this publisher, quick, simple, fun, right?
I mean, they did take it from like a 2-hour game to a hour game that you can pick up and play. So they did their part to make it more quick,
Quicker,
and
simpler,
more
funner. Yeah. So what have you been doing since Boston Fig? I know it's been what, 7 years now since you were in the show.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely I took my sweet time on getting Or finished and published. I haven't been super busy with designing games. One of the big things I ended up going back to law school. I'm currently at law school at Northeastern. And so, I've gotten to a point that I don't really have time to design anymore, like unfortunately. But one of the things I'm hoping is to try to find a way to use my law degree to work in the board game industry. So, maybe find ways to either, represent publishers or designers and, negotiating the contracts that they need or stuff like that. So definitely a hard thing I'll have to figure out, but, it's exciting to try to combine my career with actually, working with people in the industry that I love.
So we'll have McClintock and Associates board game lawyers.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Nice, nice. All right. Anything else that you want to say about your experience with Boston Fig about Or?
Yeah, I'm BFIG was a great experience. Honestly, I very often say that 1 year at BFIG was the best day of my life, just because it was so incredible to meet a ton of people, play a ton of board games, and win something special very early on in the process. And that's a reason I've come back for many years, either as a volunteer or as an exhibitor or otherwise.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Boston Fig this year. And we'll look forward to seeing you in future years too. And maybe you'll be back with a booth with your law firm.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Take care.
You too. Hey everyone, we are back here with Jake Given of Lay Waste Games. How you doing, Jake?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Jake Given and the team at Lay Waste, they've been in Boston Fig and Connecticut Fig a number of times. They've won a number of our Figgies, including the first year when I ran the showcase. Their game Dragoon won the Audience Choice Award. That was in 2015. And then they went on with Dragoon in 2016 to Connecticut Fig, where they won Best in Show and Best Art. And then another one of their games, Life Siphon, won Best in Show runner-up at Connecticut Fig in 2018. So we've got one of our most winningest designers here. So thanks for joining us, Jake.
My pleasure.
Thanks. All right, Jake. So can you tell us a little bit about your games? Let's start with Dragoon, because I know that was the first game that Lay Waste put out there.
Yeah, so that was really kind of our flagship game. It was something that my brother and I had started working on a number of years before BFIG. And yeah, really it started out as just we really want to play as dragons, right? Like, so many games that you're trying to fight the dragons, but it's just like, let's just switch it up a bit. And yeah, the whole point is you're dragons living on an island, and humans start building villages and cities everywhere. You're not happy about it, but they have gold, which you really like. So you're dominating and destroying humans, taking their gold, and the first one to amass the biggest hoard is the winner.
I mean, what more could you want from that?
Right.
And then Life Siphon, another game I've played a few times. Tell me about that.
So that one's more of kind of a combat strategy game, although it is kind of not kind of, it is really like the spiritual successor to Dragoon, because we ended up kind of putting most of our games all in the same universe. But the idea is that dragons have like reclaimed the surface on the island and forced humans underground. And in their hiding underground, they come across that strange glowing box that says "Do not open," which they open and are immediately cursed with this terrible, awful power to summon demons and familiars by spending their own life force. And the only way to escape is to take out your closest friend, who is the person sitting on your left. So it's this sort of summoning demons and familiars, spending your own life, which is really the only resource that you have in order to do so, but not spending so much that you're putting yourself at risk. And the combat that I really like, where you're only attacking the person to your left, but defending against the player to your right, means that you kind of have two fronts that you're working on. And the game ends when the first player is reduced to 0 health, and then everybody else loses except the person who took out their opponent. So you're oftentimes helping the people who are trying to hurt you, just so you have a chance to survive, to take out your own opponent.
That sounds pretty cool. So you got some interesting dynamics going on there, where it's not just one note, that you actually have a bunch of different strategies where you can help other players at the table in order to win the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there this whole at the end of it though, when there's one player left, that person's the real winner? Do you get that?
Well, so that's actually no elimination. So as soon as the first player is taken out, the game is over. Everybody loses except that one person who took out their opponent.
Oh, all right. I got that. So, all right. So yeah, it sounds pretty good. I mean, no elimination, that's usually a pretty good thing in game design. So you've been in Boston Fig for a number of years. I think 2015 was the first time that you were in the show. And then whether you've been in the showcase or not, Lay Waste has always been a great sponsor of us. And I know that you're a big sponsor of Boston Fig Virtual this year as well. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Boston Fig throughout the years?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, like I said, our first year, in 2015, as in the showcase, was just such an awesome experience. It was the first time we'd really been able to put our game in front of, strangers, and a lot of them, and get that sort of feedback from people, and not only to get really great feedback and meet a lot of really amazing people. But at the, winning awards is always really fun, It's like, and especially the Audience Choice Award one, it just felt really special. That was the thing that people there thought was the most fun. That was just that one just meant a lot to us.
I agree. I remember being, I had one of my games at a booth there that same year as well, and I was right next to you, and I remember you always had this crowd of individuals around your booth, and you get a pretty big team, and you were bringing more people in. It was just a really hopping place that whole year, and so clearly everyone liked it if they voted for you.
It was partly because of that, and also just the entire experience was so positive that it was really important for us to keep coming back even if we didn't have anything new, because we wanted to make sure that kind of experience was going to continue for other designers, for people just trying to check out the industry or see if it's something that they might want to do themselves. And really see how it helped show how accessible this world really is.
Now you're pulling on my heartstrings, Jake, because that's why we do it. So,
but yeah, it's something that we aren't going to miss. we're not going to miss one.
We are always happy to have you there. Like I said, you've been one of our more stalwart kind of companies that have come in, and you're in the showcase. Sometimes you're a sponsor, sometimes you're both. And your company and you and all your other designers, are pivotal to helping Boston Fig to continue on. So once again, thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you for all the work that you put in, man.
So you did talk about getting some feedback while you were at Boston Fig. Did any of your games change after you had, 10 hours of having random players come up and play them over and over again?
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, so with Dragoon, I honestly can't even remember at this point, just because it was a while ago. But with when we had Life Siphon at Connecticut Fig in 2018, the version that we had was a black and white piece of paper printed out on like printer paper that was just shapes.
I remember that year. It was at Kineticon, right? I remember going up and being like, "This isn't one of your prototypes. What are you talking about?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's changing."
So there were times where at the end of a demo, somebody had a suggestion, or we're just like, maybe let's tweak this power a little bit, or let's try this card in a slightly different fashion, and put that in, implemented that change for the next demo that we did, and saw, whoa, okay, this was great. Or things that we just removed entirely. There was one particular card that seemed really awesome to us at the time, but one of the limiting factors with that game is that you can only move your pieces up one space at a time, and so and combat doesn't happen until you reach a certain point. There was a card that let you move a unit a second time, which if you get that early on and nobody else has it, it can be kind of game breaking.
Yeah.
And, after a few pieces of feedback, like that, it was like, you know what, we don't need that. But yeah, it absolutely helps shape the direction of the game that you want to go. Helps figure out like who is this game going to be fun for? Because there are plenty of people who you know what, this isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's helpful. It's helpful to know, all right, well, if this genre of game isn't really your style, then that's okay. But I'm not going to try to make it so it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you have been part of the Game Makers Guild, and I've been getting made fun of more and more, especially since I started teaching game design, that the number one thing that you as a designer need to watch out for is your target audience. You need to decide who your target audience is, and every design decision that you make needs to be around who your game is for. And so it's really great to hear you say this, and that you're using Boston Fig in order to get your game in front of people who are and aren't your audience, in order to help you hone that in the design of the game. So
exactly.
I'm really glad that you were providing an opportunity for you to do that for your own games, and in the end making them better games for it.
Absolutely.
So what else has Lay Waste been doing? I know you have a lot more than just these two games, and I know you have a lot more in the pipeline. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the second game that we did outside of Dragoon was a game called Human Era, which was kind of a time traveling social deduction party style game that was we successfully ran it on Kickstarter. A lot of fun, and it's one of my favorite games that we did. It doesn't get
Other
a lot
people
of,
say it's the perfect social deduction game. If you want a social deduction game, that is a that's perfect for it. That Human Era is that game.
Oh, thank you. Because I love social deduction games. I'm just bad at them, and so when we were making it we wanted it to be something that even if you're not the best, at deception and, subterfuge, it's something you're still going to be able to jump into, have fun with, and enjoy, even if you're, the machine that are supposed to be hiding among the team of humans. If you're found out pretty early on, there's still stuff that you can do, and there's enough kind of chaos and accusations that it's going to be a fun time. And I still remember, I can't remember if this was at a BFIG or not, but there was one demo that me and my brother Zach, Zach and I are the game designers. We were both playing. We both happened to be machines, which are the villains of the of the piece. And at the very end, we actually managed to squeak out a win because Zach knew that I was also a machine, and he called me out. He's like, "Oh, Jake is absolutely, but don't put me on the mission." And
That's a tactic in social deduction, though. If you're on the team of bad guys, you get in the graces of the good guys by calling out the other bad guys. I'm a big social deduction person myself. Even the games that don't have social deduction elements to it, I'm playing the game above the table as well as the game on the table. And so that's, back in college when I first got into board games, it was those types of games that my friends and I really, we'd spend the weekend playing hours on end. And so there's a lot of different tactics that you can take. And if you're new to social deduction or it's not your type, a lot of those are going to go under the radar. So keep playing, Jake, because you'll start developing them yourself as well. And then you'll play with a different group and it'll be a completely different experience because that's the whole social part of it. You've got some exciting stuff coming up too. So tell us about that. I know you got a Kickstarter coming up, right?
That's right. Yeah. So some of the other projects that we've done, we published a couple of games from outside designers. One was a game called Metal by Jordan Draper. It was kind of a all-encompassed little box of metal pieces to play like tabletop versions of lawn games, and that was just a ton of fun. Just like beautiful components. Some of those pieces they just feel so nice to play with. A lot of fun. And another one created by Matt Fantastic, which is Heads Will Roll, which we've had available over the past few years, really in just kind of small print runs we've done ourselves. But we're going to bring that to Kickstarter for a full-on production run and really give it some special shine. That'll be coming in March.
Yeah, Heads Will Roll I actually own. I remember from one of your first production runs. I ended up buying it at Gen Con a few years ago. I had a fun story about that one. I was rooming with two other guys that year, and we were in a hotel room. There were three of us and two beds, and so we had to play a game to see who was going to be the solo bed, and it was Heads Will Roll, and I won. And so I had a nice sleep every single night while I was at Gen Con, and they had to sleep in the same bed together. So the Heads Will Roll will always have a special place in my heart for keeping me comfortable at that Gen Con. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jake. It was great to have you here, and enjoy the rest of your Boston Fig Virtual.
You too. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks. Hey, so we're here with Doug Lewandowski. Doug Lewandowski is one of our Figgy winners. He won Most Dynamic in 2016 for his game Fired. How's it going, Doug?
Oh, great. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. So Doug, so you won Most Dynamic in 2016 for Fired. Can you tell us a little bit about Fired? What's it about? How does it play?
Yeah, so Fired was a game about a corporate takeover. Gone wrong, as all corporate takeovers go. And so now both players are trying to get the opponent's boss fired before theirs so that they can keep their jobs. And so it's a game of attrition. Players are going to be firing cards out of their opponent's hand, playing cards for effects, trying to figure out what's in their opponent's hand so that they can then successfully target it, things like that.
So it's like a quick little card game. I mean, I own it. I've played it. So
Right. Sorry, I should not even the high level stuff. Yes, it's a 2-player card game. Takes about 10-15 minutes to play.
Okay. I mean, I know I've played it. I think I first played it a little bit before Boston Fig, when you were applying to Boston Fig, I think.
Yes.
And we sat down at PAX East, and you were like, "Hey, I just want to show you this game."
Yeah.
And we played it, and I think we immediately bought it as well. And we played it a number of times since. So I think it's a fun little game. It's got a lot of take thatness to it because you know you're firing your opponent's employees.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so I think it's really thematic. The art in it, I know it's not your typical board game art.
Right.
But that's part of why it won Most Dynamic, because the art, well, tell us a little bit about it, because I know you have a story there.
Yeah, so the art was, I had worked with the artist on a game before and went back to him when I was working on this. This was originally published with Button Shy Games. They do a lot of wallet games, and Tagmeyer was thinking about moving into tuck boxes, and eventually decided not to after this game. So
your game ruined it.
It ruined it, right? He said that one was so good that why would I ever do another? No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Once you get it right,
Must be.
Got it.
And so Tagmeyer and I talked about it, and I said, I really want these people to look like they're under fluorescent lights. Like I really want these to be ugly illustrations of these people, which like thematically I think was pretty strong. It didn't make for the most appealing product in the end.
Right.
But yeah, so went back to an artist I'd worked with on a game before and said, can you do that? And he was like, if you want them to be ugly, I can make them ugly. And boy, howdy did he.
Yeah.
So,
but I think it's the perfect kind of art for what the theme is. You have a corporate merger. That's not anything that's like exciting, right? So,
right.
And you've got all of these individuals who you are literally firing throughout your game. And so, you know, it's okay that they look a little bit sad because they're about to lose their jobs.
Right. Yeah.
So you were in Boston Fig in 2016. That's back when we were at MIT. And we were in the hockey arena there. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience bringing Fired there?
Yeah, so I went up with a friend of mine from college and a friend of mine from around here. And we set up the booth to look like a corporate recruiting station. Came in, wore ties, had name tags made, all that sort of stuff. And just had just a fantastic time, like being goofballs and like getting into character and going like sort of full theme with it. And I was very, very surprised when it won. I remember sitting in the audience, and as they were reading the award for Most Dynamic, I was thinking like, okay, oh yeah, I played that game. That one was really, really good. Yeah. Oh yeah, people were talking about that one. That one was really good. Yeah, there's mine. That's cool. And then as they were starting to talk about like meshing the theme and the mechanics, I was like, cool. Yeah. Like I'm glad other games are doing that too. And they were like, in a game about corporate takeovers, I was like, wait, which one of those two is about corporate takeover? Was it the one I didn't? Oh, wait, what? I'm sorry, what? So that was a wonderful surprise. And yeah, it was just all around a really great weekend and just a really relaxed convention. You know, not like the constant go, but also like busy enough to not be like standing around for, 20, 25 minutes, like, hey, person over there, come on over. No, okay, bye. So yeah, like that perfect happy medium. And I loved it.
I like to say that about Boston Fig because it's an indie game festival, right? So your audience isn't showing up to play the next biggest hit. They're not looking for what the giant companies are putting out there. You know, they're going there because they want to find these new games that they've never heard of before, these indie games. And so, we get 4,000 or 5,000 people who go there a year, and that's what they're looking for. And so when they see a game like yours at a booth like yours, remember you had the cubicle walls up in the booth and everything.
That's right. Yes. That's right.
Don't tell work you stole them. But, to go there and see something like that, that's going to get them excited because they're going to say, like, this is a legit game that I really, really want to, look at. And, it's part of the reason why it won, I think.
Thank you.
So how has Fired changed since it was in the show? It's been 4 years now.
Yep.
What's going on with it?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot. So after, once Tagmeyer made the decision that Button Shy was going to be exclusively wallet games, which I think is a brilliant decision on his part. He has his brand, and that's what it is. And the Game of the Month Club, which is also super great.
Yep.
And so his brand is even smaller than a tuck box, which is cool. So we sold through the run, and he said, this isn't on brand anymore. I'm going to release it back to you. Great game. I can recommend a few places. And I actually had a friend who was starting a publishing company and said, I would actually really like to do that.
Yep.
One thing led to another. He eventually decided not to pursue the company. And so as I was shopping it around, I showed it to a couple people who said, the game's cool, love the mechanics, the theme isn't doing it for us. We want something a little spicier, right? We want a more exciting theme. People don't want to play Office Space the game. I was like, but I kind of want to play Office Space the game. And so I was kicking around ideas and just had like my notebook open, was like brainstorming like what would be a head-to-head, people going at things. And at the Gen Con where I was doing the finishing touches, it was like go to the con during the day. This is last Gen Con. Go to the con during the day and then like stay up late, like tweaking and refining Kids on Brooms before we had our deadline to get that to Hunters and Renegade. And was like, well, it's sort of like people casting spells at each other. So, okay, yep, there we go. And so the next day, like stayed up super late making changes on, blank playing cards, and showed it to Scott Gata from Renegade. And he said, yeah, this is really cool. I think it's mechanically and thematically, I think it's a perfect fit. And so now it is called Duel of Wands. And
awesome.
Yeah. And we made some upgrades in the meantime with, it's now a 3-round game rather than just one off.
Okay.
And at the end of a round, if you've lost, you get to upgrade cards in your deck.
Okay.
So all of the basic cards, with 2 exceptions, have upgrades that allow you to do more stuff with them. So they're a slightly more powerful version.
Okay.
So a card, for example, a card where you might have to eliminate it from the game in order to play it, now you might just need to play it to your discard pile. And so things like that. So there's a little bit of that catch up in there. It makes it a little bit less symmetrical. Yep. It always had in Fire, they were called consultants, who you would shuffle 1 or 2 of them into your deck. We added a few more of those, and then
I remember those. The boss's wife was one of them. I remember.
Yeah, the boss's wife, right? The HR director,
yep,
like that. And so now these are like beefed up spells, unique spells they're called, and then the upgraded spells are the ones that get augmented. And so you start the game with a couple of those, and then as you lose rounds, you get to upgrade your cards even more.
Okay. So you get a little bit more powerful as a wizard. Are you're casting spells, so you're just trying to like attack each other in a wizard duel?
Yeah, so the concept is that this is like a codified way for wizards to go at each other, sort of like a joust.
Okay.
Where the idea is nobody's really going to get hurt. And so the goal, instead of firing the boss, it's targeting your opponent's psyche.
Okay.
So if you can successfully get all the way in, you've won.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
And the other upgrade is the art. So rather than like people under lights, when it was going to be published by the other company, we had 4 different companies illustrated, which was kind of cool. I was really excited about. You know, we had like the post-apocalyptic company, the 80s company. Now we have art from Heather Vaughn, who's done the art for Kids on Bikes, Teens in Space, Kids on Brooms, all original art, and just I think some of the best work. Some of the best work she's ever done. I mean, all of her work is the best work she's ever done, but some of my favorite pieces for sure. So.
Amazing how art affects that with a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always talk about art as being part of marketing. Art will draw you to a game. It can push you away from a game. And so a good artist is worth their weight in gold. So it sounds like Heather is right there.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about Kids on Bikes, Kids on Brooms. I know you've been doing a lot of other designing, and those are 2 games that you have designed. Can you tell us a little bit about what else you've done outside of just Fired?
Sure. So shortly after that, I started getting into role-playing game design a little bit more. That started out with 9th level games, did a collection of games called The Tragedies of Middle School, all about classic middle school games with role-playing games behind them as a mechanic. You know, so like somebody has a cootie catcher game in there that's, I think about summoning demons. Somebody has, you know, like the card on the head poker as like whether or not you have a demonic spider crawling up your body. And the one I did was used spin the bottle as a mechanic, called 7 Minutes in Hell. And that, so that was kind of like my first thing. And then Kids on Bikes came along, and John Gilmore and I did that.
And that was a huge success too.
Yeah, that was again, I was really surprised by how well that did. We really expected it to be like, we're going to do a little indie Kickstarter. Like, it would be really cool if we made $10,000, but we won't. And then we did, and then some, which was really cool. And I think a big part of that was the marketing too, right? Hunters came along, and then shortly after the Kickstarter, Renegade got involved, and so that's been really exciting. So we did a follow-up to that with Teens in Space. And then most recently, Kids on Brooms, which is about, obviously, a magical school. So that's been really great to work on, and a lot of fun, and like just a really good outlet. I've also been still keeping involved with tabletop design for board games. So Duel of Wands, which I did with Luke Minch, brought him on after. That's actually another one of the really big changes. After Fired, which I solo designed, Luke and I, Luke was playtesting a lot of the changes and just had so many great ideas that I was like, you're on now, come on. Yeah. And then recently released a game called Aunt Agatha's Attic from Chronicle Games, which is a game about cousins bickering over their aunt's possibly magical items in her attic. So it's a set collection game, a little bit like Pit with some more stuff layered on top of it. And then I've also been doing some much smaller Kickstarter projects. I did one Kickstarter with a physical product one time by myself. The first game that I published, Gothic Doctor, was a physical product, and I don't ever want to have to deliver products to people again.
Yeah.
But I've done a handful of Kickstarter projects with PDF delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really rewarding because it's, you can do a smaller thing. You can make it a lot weirder. If 100 people are interested in it, great. If 300 people are interested in it, also great. I'm just out the cost of art and my time.
Right. You don't have to deal with manufacturing. You don't have to deal with shipping. You don't have to,
Right. I
just send them a file.
Send them out, right. And so that's been really fun. So I think I've done 5 or 6 of those in the past couple of years. So yeah, staying busy, staying active, and continuing to try both different things and then refining older stuff. And then there's some other projects that I can't talk about yet, but
Well,
I really wish I could.
Well, I mean, that's good because now you'll have stuff to talk about in future years with us.
That's
so.
right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Doug. It's really great to catch up with you, see what's been going on. And yeah, thanks a lot. We'll stay in touch.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks, Tim.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Hey everyone, we're back here with Marcus Lehner. He is one of our double Figgy winners. His game De-Enabled, it won Best Game in Progress in 2018, and his game Octochef won Best Family Game at Connecticut Fig in 2019. How's it going, Marcus?
It's going good. I'm happy to be here. I'm very excited.
Great, great. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. So let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about your game. Let's start with De-Enabled first.
All right, let's see if I remember my old pitch. So De-Enabled is a game where everyone is a mad scientist blasting each other with their genetic mutation rays. All you have to do is take a card and pass to somebody else. But the trick is, each card that you pass is a mutation. You got something like T-Rex arms, or you have, you lose your thumbs because you have paws, or one hand's behind your back. And it's a dexterity game, a party game where you're kind of just getting more and more twisted up in knots until you physically can't get one card over to the next person. So really just an absolute like blast at parties and things. Everyone's looking quite ridiculous by the end of it.
It really is. Marcus and I have known each other for a couple of years, and so I've played this game before. It was when he was just starting it out, and I already have pictures of friends and people on my phone who are in all of these weird, awkward positions trying to play this
Be
game.
careful, I got pictures of you too somewhere.
Yeah, well, okay. But yeah, I remember the first time I played this game, it was just a concept, and I think you just put it together, and you brought it to Game Makers Guild. And the first time I played it, I was like, all right, this game is getting published. Like, this is going to do some great things. And I remember being at BostonFIG in 2018, and the number of people who were around your booth playing this game, and the laughter and the hilarity that was coming out of it. You almost ended up winning Audience Choice that year. I think you ended up in second place by just like 3 votes.
Yeah, you had to tell me that, so it just sits in there.
Sorry about that. But you did get Best Game in Progress. So, everyone got a Figgy. Well, not everyone got a Figgy, but you and the other game got a Figgy. So, and then you got Octochef in 2019. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Octochef is a game where you are the legendary Octochef who has risen from the deep to open up his seaside sandwich shop. It's a cooperative real-time game where everyone represents 2 tentacles of the octopus chef. And so you can actually play it on the floor, sitting back to back to back to back to physically form up an octopus. And then what you do, once you are the octopus, what you do is everyone has a deck of ingredients, and you're trying to fulfill as many sandwich orders before the lunch rush is over. So frantic co-op, just, again, I'm gonna say, blasted parties.
Yeah, I mean, both of these games are super creative. Like, I've known both of them for a couple of years now. Super, super creative, and I think that's just something that I can say about you in your mind. But Octochef in particular, how did you come up with that one?
So I like the story behind this one because it kind of just has a disconnect where suddenly I will just talk about octopuses and then suddenly there was an octopus game. But I'll remember the evening it happened because it was my older sister's baby shower, and it was woodland themed. And for it, my mom had decided to start crocheting a bunch of woodland animals. And she just started like crocheting like that year and suddenly was making like 8 of them in a month. And while she was doing that, everyone was talking about it. My little sister was getting into it too, and she was crocheting an octopus. So by the time the shower came around and everyone was together, my mom had all the fancy woodland animals that were used for decoration, and my little sister had 3/8 of the octopus completed. She had finished 3 of the tentacles and not the rest of the octopus. So we were joking about octopuses for a while, and while we're sitting there eating dinner, I just had the mental image of this octopus frantically waving its arms around, trying to cook a whole bunch of things. And really every design decision from the game there was just trying to capture that feeling of a frantic octopus.
I mean, I think it does that pretty well. You got, I remember seeing people play it on the floor, especially in the back-to-back mode there, and everyone's yelling like, I got tomatoes, I got this, I got that, and, passing cards back and forth. So sounds like you captured that pretty well.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the keys. One of the good changes in the design was splitting up the ingredients between the players, because when I started off, everyone just kind of had a bunch of stuff, and you didn't really have to interact with anybody. You could just play by yourself and kind of get there. But once I split things between everybody, only one person had onions. If you needed onions, you needed to ask that person for it. So that really just like opened up the floodgates of just everyone, shouting at each other, asking for things, and being ignored until they start shouting louder, which is exactly what I want at the table.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the perfect way of exploiting a mechanic there. You want this frantic game that has a lot of interaction between your players, and so you give certain players things that no one else has, and they have to interact. So I'm a huge fan of exploiting things in games, especially if that's where the fun is. So you've been in Boston Fig a number of years. I know you had Octo Chef in Boston Fig in 2019 as well. It won in Connecticut Fig. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience being at Boston Fig, what you like about the show, all of that?
Oh yeah, so BFIG is actually one of the few conventions I attend each year, and part of it also, I really love that the focus of the convention is on the indie games. Like, when you go around and you have the showcase floor, it's all like, you can see these are people just like me, where it's like they're making their, one of their earlier games. It's all like, some of them are just, prototypes, like, very, some like just still written on paper, and some of them are like, looking really great and have all these different features and all these things. It's a really nice mix, and just the vibe and the energy is just really positive. Like a good mix of people, like a lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of gamers. It just is really nice diversity. And every time I've been there, it's just been the table is packed, and I'm having a great time.
Good. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. That's exactly what we're striving for when we do this show. So now, can you tell us a little bit of what's been going on with your games since they were in the show? I know they've only been in the show recently, so you don't have a lot going on, but it sounds like you still got some good things.
Yeah, so probably the most exciting is Octo Chef just won, or co-won, the Cardboard Edison Award for 2020, which is run by Cardboard Edison, and that was the real pleasant surprise for 2020. And so from there, I've had not naming any names, a little bit of interest there, so it's making its way around to a couple different publishers. But super excited to see that they had they released their the cover for their best practices book that has an octopus on the cover, and I was like, oh, you made it an octopus just for me, I think. So that's where Octo Chef is going. 2020, of course, has been not too many conventions for anybody. And weirdly, my games don't work particularly well on Tabletop Simulator with all the dexterity components. But that's where Octo Chef is at. De-enabled is kind of, I think mostly because it's hard to play it in these times, is a little bit in a holding pattern. But I'm definitely working on potential re-theme and a potential one more like component into the game to kind of bring it up to the next level. What it is yet, don't know. But once it's there, it'll be great. Yeah.
I just can imagine, because you do so many party games and games that have a physicality to them, that it's got to be difficult right now to be playtesting your games. How are you doing that? Are you doing that?
So generally, I'm bugging my family would be the main playing these games. So we've still been seeing each other in our small group. So I can get a group of 4 to 6 every couple months or so when we get together to play those games. I'll say it has been tough. I have shifted focus to some games that are more digital friendly. Like I started making a game with like letter tiles, which funnily enough also Tabletop Simulator also didn't like particularly well based on how I was using the tile. Persevering there. But yeah, no, it's a tough year for the type of game that I typically design, but I always have more ideas I'm working on, so I'm keeping myself busy.
Sounds like it's a good way to challenge you as a designer and kind of branch out into different genres of games.
Yeah, but once my family's getting sick of the dexterity games, like, all right, what are we gonna have to do on this one?
Well, so what else have you been doing as a designer since you were in the show?
So a lot of my when I'm not working on my own games, I spend a lot of time with the Game Makers Guild, which I think you've heard of, Tim. You may be familiar with the.
I may
Game Makers
have
Guild.
heard them. Yeah.
So really just help, just being part of the community, playing other people's games, helping out there. I know we've been doing some cool stuff with setting up more like workshop events where in addition we're working on like the sales side, almost like pitch practice, sell stuff like that. I've been helping out with that, getting those going. So that's also been really fun. I like the salesmanship aspect of the games in addition to the design part, because it all kind of ties together to make it fun, I guess.
I mean, I think it's great for you because one thing that I always teased you about is you make these really great games and then you don't pitch them to publishers. So I'm really glad to see that you're doing some of this stuff and you're being a leader here, because that is forcing you to go around and pitch your games to publishers. And
yeah, I'm running out of excuses.
You're clearly making good games. You're winning multiple awards from different organizations. So, I think you're someone that we all need to watch out for here. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcus. It was great to see you, and enjoy the rest of the show here.
Yeah, thank you very much.